One image. That's all it took. An unexpected prison photo of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, the man behind Bad Boy Records and a billion-dollar legacy, suddenly dropped into public view. And within hours, it blew up the internet. In the photo, Diddy appears gaunt, expressionless, and eerily unrecognizable, far from the polished icon we've seen on magazine covers or award stages. But what sent social media into overdrive wasn't just how different he looked, it was who he looked like. Comment after comment pointed out an unsettling resemblance to another fallen figure, disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. Same weary stare, same hollowness in the eyes. Even the posture seemed unnervingly similar. People weren't just shocked, they were creeped out. And quickly the whispers started. Is this just bad lighting? Or does this photo reveal a deeper collapse happening behind bars? But here's the thing. This story, it's not just about a viral mugshot, because what's going on inside Fort Dix, the federal prison where Diddy is now doing time, goes far beyond what the photo captured. New reports, insider leaks, and quiet moves he's making in the background could change everything we thought we knew about the man who once called himself the King of New York. And the truth, it's darker, weirder, and far more complicated than anyone expected. But this story isn't just about a mugshot. It's about downfall, influence, and a man the world thought was untouchable. Until now. On October 3rd, 2025, the music world came to a standstill. In a federal courtroom in New York, surrounded by legal teams and federal agents, Sean Diddy Combs, once one of the most powerful men in entertainment, was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison. The room fell silent when the judge handed down the conviction, 2 counts of interstate transportation for illegal sexual purposes, charges connected to what prosecutors called a systematic abuse of influence spanning years, words that hit like a hammer. Weeks earlier, in July, Diddy had been convicted in what many thought was an almost impossible task, holding him accountable. The allegations were ugly, reportedly involving multiple women, several transactions across state lines, and years of alleged cover-ups. His legal team fought aggressively. They denied most claims, deflected others, and tried to strike deals behind closed doors. But this time, it didn't work. At sentencing, U.S. District Judge Meredith Flanders didn't mince words. She said, quote, "No empire, no matter how influential, is above the law. This sentence reflects the severity of a betrayal that used fame as a weapon." Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Inside, those close to Diddy described him as motionless, hollow-eyed, as if reality had only just hit when the gavel fell. Online, it was chaos. Diddy downfall trended globally for 2 days straight. Memes exploded. Fans were divided. Some said justice had been served. Others said it was character assassination. In the entertainment world, some spoke out, cautiously. Others stayed silent. The industry Diddy once ruled didn't rush to his defense, and maybe that's because this wasn't just a scandal. It was a collapse. No more VIP access. No more legal shields. No more shiny statements from PR teams. Diddy wasn't just losing a court case, he was losing the untouchable status that had protected him for decades. But nobody expected what would happen next. Not even Diddy himself. The photo was only supposed to be procedural. It was a standard inmate profile, quietly released by CBS News in late October. Just a simple updated image of Sean Diddy Combs from the federal correctional system. No glitz, no filters, just a man in custody, but the moment it hit the internet, it exploded. In the image, Diddy looks nothing like the charismatic mogul fans remember. Gone is the swagger, the diamond chains, the designer shades. Instead, he stares blankly into the camera, face drawn tight, eyes heavy and vacant. His posture sagged, his skin grayer than usual, like the weight of everything had physically altered him. Within hours, the comment sections were in full meltdown mode. Is that really Diddy? He looks like Epstein. This is scary. Look at his eyes. Unrecognizable. That's not the same man. And that last. One summed it up perfectly. He didn't just look older, he looked replaced. But what really threw people off was how strikingly similar he looked to Jeffrey Epstein, another powerful figure brought down by dark allegations, and a man whose ending still sparks constant online suspicion. Side-by-side comparisons popped up instantly. Same vacant stare, same gauntness, same eerie calm. The resemblance was more than casual, and people noticed. Quickly, the theories started flying. Was this intentional? Was someone within the system trying to send a message by releasing this shot? Or was it simply the consequence of stress, confinement, and the collapse of a public image? Others read deeper. In Epstein's photo, many said they saw guilt. In Diddy's, regret. Not for what he lost, but possibly for what was finally catching up. But the truth is, no one really knows what that stare was saying. Images can lie. But they can also tell stories no words can. And this particular image sparked a million questions, not just about Diddy's fall from grace, but about what was unfolding behind the walls of the prison holding him. Out of the spotlight, out of control, and far from the world where he ruled. But things got even stranger when people looked into where he was and what he was doing there. Fort Dix, New Jersey. It sounds like some forgotten military base, but these days, it's one of the largest federal correctional facilities in the U.S., and it's now home to Sean Diddy Combs. He was transferred there in October 2025, just weeks after his sentencing. No VIP treatment, no private cell, just general population, with close to 3,000 other inmates, at a secure, but not maximum security, federal institution. Fort Dix is what the Bureau of Prisons calls a low to medium security facility, but don't let that label fool you. Life inside is anything but soft. Inmate routines are stripped down. Wake-ups at 6 a.m., counts several times a day, rigid meal times, and strictly monitored recreation. Showers are shared. Privacy is non-existent, and your status on the outside means nothing once you're in that uniform. Think about this. Diddy, who once hosted lavish parties with champagne fountains, private jets, and celeb-packed mansions, is now folding his laundry in a communal room, sleeping on a basic bunk and eating mystery meat out of a tray. Gone are the entourages. The handlers, handlers. In here, it's every man for himself. But here's where things get interesting. Reports from staff and inmates suggest that while some prisoners resent his fame, others are surprisingly protective of the former mogul. A few insiders say Diddy mostly keeps to himself, avoiding any chance of conflict, eyes down, quiet demeanor. Others claim he's been pointing out flaws in the system and trying to present himself as someone who's reflecting, learning, rehabilitating. Maybe that's for personal growth. Maybe it's for the parole board. One former staffer anonymously told media, "You can tell he's playing the long game. It's strategy, straight up. Whatever his motives," one thing quickly became clear. Diddy was planning something, and it started with a quiet move that shocked even hardened inmates. Because despite the gray walls and numbing routine, Diddy somehow landed one of the most sought-after roles inside the prison. In a place where most jobs involve scrubbing floors or hauling trays in the cafeteria, Sean Diddy Combs somehow landed one of the rarest and most envied positions inside Fort Dix, Chaplain's assistant. For those unfamiliar with prison dynamics, this isn't just a job. It's what some inmates call the golden ticket. It's quiet. It's clean. And most importantly, it comes with trust. The chaplain's assistant works directly under the prison's religious staff, helping coordinate chapel services, organizing community events, and even managing the facility's library system. It includes maintaining spiritual records, sorting religious materials, and sometimes offering mentorship roles to other inmates. It's a position that requires a spotless record inside. Emotional discipline and the kind of character evaluation that most prisoners take years to pass, if ever. Staff don't hand this position out easily. Inmates who get it are expected to be serious, consistent, and calm under pressure. So how did Diddy, fresh off a massive federal conviction and media frenzy, Some think it's just another layer of Diddy's public reinvention, a calm, reflective new version of the man behind decades of ego, excess, and power plays. Others think he's playing chess, collecting favors, building influence in the place where it still matters, even in prison, and maybe they're right. Because the role of Chaplain's assistant doesn't just earn goodwill, it could also influence parole decisions, pave the way for early program eligibility, or simply reshape how he's seen by the public down the road. So is it genuine faith, calculated survival, or just another step in a carefully crafted rebrand? But that wasn't his only strategic move. Sean Diddy Combs may be behind bars, but make no mistake, he's still making moves. Shortly after settling into Fort Dix, Diddy quietly enrolled in the Residential Drug Abuse Program, better known as RDAP. And for anyone unfamiliar with the federal prison system, this isn't just another rehab track. RDAP is the most intensive, highly structured substance abuse program offered by the Bureau of Prisons. It includes group therapy, structured living units, and hundreds of hours of classes focused on cognitive behavioral change and accountability. Sounds like a genuine shot at reform, right? Well, here's why it matters. Successful completion of RDAP can knock up to 12 months off a federal sentence. That's a full year gone. Plus, graduates get a smoother transition into halfway houses and supervised re-entry, and inmates know this. That's why enrollment is competitive. You have to meet strict requirements, document substance abuse history, show proof of good behavior, and get approval from the program psychologist. So when news of Diddy's admission into RDAP leaked, many immediately raised eyebrows. Was this about personal healing or a carefully timed legal strategy? Insiders say he's been spotless inside so far, staying out of trouble, remaining low-key, and following every bureaucratic guideline to the letter. Apparently, he's checking every box. To some, this looks like a convicted man trying to do the work, embracing accountability, and using prison time to finally reflect. But to others, including former legal analysts and justice reform advocates, it's a calculated move, a textbook play to earn early release, clean up his image, and control the narrative before he re-emerges into public life. If it works, it could cut his 50-month sentence down significantly. Instead of serving time until May 2028, Diddy could walk free as early as mid-2027. But here's the problem. Not everyone thinks he deserves mercy. In fact, the backlash outside is growing. As soon as Diddy's prison photo went public, people didn't just notice how different he looked. They noticed who he looked like, and that's when things got weird. Across X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit, users began posting side-by-side comparisons between Sean Diddy Combs and Jeffrey Epstein, the late financier whose dark empire of abuse and manipulation shocked the world and ended under still mysterious circumstances. At first, it seemed like a stretch. But the deeper you looked, the creepier it got. Same ghostly stare, same tired sag in the shoulders, same grayish, unkempt hair. Even the prisoner ID photos gave off the same washed-out, haunted feel, like two powerful men caught in the exact same moment of ultimate collapse. The internet did what the internet does. Thousands of parallels were drawn, not just physical, but psychological. Diddy rose to fame as a music tycoon, Epstein as a money man for the elite. Both were deeply connected, influential, untouchable, until allegation after allegation finally caught up to them. And both had their wealth, networks, and reputations crumble under the weight of disturbingly similar accusations. Public reaction wasn't just fascination, it was discomfort. Some called the resemblance a coincidence. Others labeled it a warning shot, like history was repeating itself with a new face. And of course, cue the internet theorists. They're two sides of the same coin. Both protected for years, until they weren't. Is Diddy just the hip-hop version of Epstein? The timeline comparisons, the whispers about old connections. Even conspiracy accounts started pushing that these takedowns weren't isolated. They were patterns. One user posted, "They're not just falling one by one if they're being removed." To be clear, let's say this responsibly. Having a similar look does not equate to similar crimes, and Diddy's situation is very different in scale and outcome from what Epstein was involved in. But when the court of public perception takes hold, facts become blurry, and emotion drives the narrative. And let's be honest, perception is reality online. The moment that eerie photo leaked, Diddy wasn't just a fallen mogul. To many, he became part of a much larger and darker conversation. But this wasn't Diddy's first brush with scandal, just the one that finally stuck. Long before he stepped inside a prison cell, Sean Diddy Combs had been circling controversy for decades. From the outside, his rise looked untouchable, turning Bad Boy Records into a cultural powerhouse, launching fashion brands, liquor empires, TV ventures, and racking up Grammys along the way. But behind the scenes, there was always noise. Since the late 90s, Diddy had been named in a string of civil suits, misconduct accusations, and shady business dealings, most of them brushed off as jealousy, media spin, or celebrity targeting. And for years, that defense held. But buried beneath the headlines were some deeply troubling patterns. Multiple women came forward at various times with allegations of sexual misconduct, intimidation, or abuse. Many later settled out of court. In nearly every case, Diddy denied wrongdoing, and the case would go quiet shortly after. No charges, no admission of guilt, and no real hit to his brand. Whispers of payoffs, secret NDAs, and backroom deals began to grow, especially among former insiders who once worked within his music empire. Some alleged that victims were being quietly paid to disappear. Others said Diddy surrounded himself with lawyers and enablers who made problems fade, often before the public even heard about them, and for years it worked. He stayed rich. He stayed famous. And above all, he stayed protected, shielded by his image as a self-made mogul who came from nothing and built something legendary. But when this most recent case came down, everything changed. What made it different? For starters, proof. According to prosecutors, there were receipts, flights, texts, timelines, all pointing to something more organized, more damning, and harder to explain away. This wasn't trial by rumor anymore. It was in black and white. On top of that came a changed media environment. With growing public awareness around exploitation and abuse in Hollywood and the entertainment industry as a whole, the old tricks stopped working. Platforms weren't as eager to look the other way. Victims felt more empowered. Lawyers pressured prosecutors to act, and the public demanded justice. And once the sentence dropped, it opened the floodgates all over again. People started digging up the old headlines, the settled cases, the allegations that were previously dismissed. Online timelines and fan-made breakdowns showed just how many stories there had actually been, and just how long this had been going on. All of them now painted in a brand new light, which leads people to ask, how did he maintain power for so long? To understand why Diddy's downfall hit so hard and felt so surreal, you have to rewind. There was a time when Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just influential. He was the culture. Back in the 90s, when hip-hop was still carving out its identity, Bad Boy Records exploded onto the scene like a force of nature. Diddy wasn't just signing artists. He was building icons. The notorious B.I.G. became the label's crown jewel, and singles like Juicy, Mo Money Mo Problems, and Hypnotize redefined the sound of East Coast rap. Diddy had the golden touch. He didn't just produce, he orchestrated. He marketed grief, built on legacy, and wrapped it in Versace, champagne, and platinum sales. Then came the business moves. Sean John, his fashion brand, was everywhere. Krog Vodka? Diddy turned it into a cultural must-have. He launched Revolt TV, a hip-hop cable network designed to challenge major outlets. Every corner of entertainment, he found a way in. And let's not forget the politics. Hosting his ultra-exclusive white parties in the Hamptons, rubbing shoulders with presidents and billionaires endorsing candidates on national TV. Diddy leveraged his influence far beyond music. He wasn't just a celebrity. He was a brand, a billionaire in motion. For years, people described him with one word: uncancelable. Even when controversy crept in, even when lawsuits emerged or scandals flared, they faded. Diddy was too smart, too rich, too iconic. The empire held strong, but maybe that was an illusion, because behind all the shine, there were always whispers. Questions about how he ran his companies. Rumors of iron-fisted NDAs, intimidation tactics, loyalty bought and sold. Some industry vets say they saw things, but no one dared speak. You didn't cross Diddy, not if you wanted to survive in music. Still, the image persisted. Kingmaker, tastemaker, rainmaker. Until it didn't. Because now, the champagne lifestyle is gone. The throne is empty, and the empire, it's crumbling, piece by piece. And with the empire shattered, what happens now? Unless something changes? Sean Diddy Combs isn't scheduled for release until May 8, 2028. But if he completes the Residential Drug Abuse Program, RDAP, and keeps his internal record spotless, insiders say he could be out as early as mid-2027, just under 2 years from now. And that's where things get complicated, because even while serving time, there are rumblings that Diddy isn't just passing the time, he's plotting his next act. According to reports leaking online, Diddy's begun sketching out the blueprint for a radical rebrand, not the flashy mogul of the early 2000s, but a more introspective spiritual version of himself, a man of faith shaped by adversity, redeemed through humility. And in some circles, he's already planting the seeds. There's chatter, unconfirmed but growing, that Diddy is writing a memoir from behind bars, one that would chronicle his upbringing, his rise, and most notably, his fall and transformation. Others say he's documenting his time as a chaplain's assistant, planning to link it with faith-based initiatives upon release. Maybe a foundation, maybe even a prison reform platform. On social media, there's been a trickle of letters and statements, supposedly from Diddy, or at least approved by his team, offering vague quotes about gratitude, reflection, and God's plan. One cryptic message posted by a fan account read, "I lost the world, but I found my soul, and while some followers eat it up, not everyone's buying it." Victims advocacy groups, activists, and many online critics are already speaking out, loud and clear. They're calling this a revenge rebrand, a cynical attempt to manipulate public sympathy and restore power under a new disguise. Some even suggest he's looking to clone the redemption arcs of other high-profile men who found God after getting caught, then came back to lucrative platforms. To them, this isn't about repentance. It's strategy. Public opinion is just as divided. Is this the start of a comeback? Or a slow-cooked PR ploy from someone who's always 10 steps ahead? Right now, everything Diddy does behind those walls, every move, every rumor, every word is being watched, dissected, and judged, which leaves his future as unclear as ever, whether he stays silent, returns to the spotlight, or gets denied early release. Every move will be watched. One photo. That's all it took. What started as an official inmate release, dim lighting, blank backdrop, no expression, became a symbol. A symbol of how far Sean Diddy Combs has fallen and how rapidly the tides can turn, even for someone once seen as untouchable. That image spread not just because of how eerie it looked, but because it captured a truth we rarely see in real time, the collapse of a giant.